any new customer PIN numbers who are waiting to go from StorMan to the gate system and vice versa. And if you run our multi-view, which is our sort of flagship large corporate product, it also synchronizes the data between your facility and head office. And people at head office have the exact same data as you do and can do things from head office, like run reports and so on. So the synchronizing is also done through that screen. Now the last thing you'll see on this little floating window is the word main inside a white box here on the right hand side. And that essentially shows us that the only screen we've got open, or the only window we've got open, is the main window or the dashboard. Now, if you have a lot of windows open, and you can have up to 9 in StorMan, they will all appear underneath main. So for example, I'll just open up Rob here. I'll click back onto main. I'll open up Ian, click back onto main, and I might pick Nigel Baker down here. So as you can see, all of our 3 customers are being docked up in this little floating window, and by any time I just click on here, it flicks between the different customers, including main. So it means you can have up to 9 things going on at once in StorMan. And that's a great thing to know because, for example, let's just say you're in the middle of doing a move-in, and that might take 5 or 10 minutes depending on people filling out paperwork, but it doesn't mean you have to stop what you're doing if someone wants to come in and buy a box. All you have to do is leave that customer open, click on main, then you can do a cash sale, you can do a reservation, you can even rent another unit if one guy's really quick at filling in a form and one guy's really slow. That's no problem. You can have all these things just docked up here, running in the background without having to stop or cancel them at any time. And back to main. Okay, so that's the StorMan dashboard. If you have any questions on what we've covered so far, feel free to use the questions panel in your webcasting section there. It may have hidden, or it may be docked to the side, so you just need to click on the little arrows to undock it, and you can put some questions in there if you do have any. I'll just continue, but as I said, if you do have any questions, just feel free to write them in and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do for you is a sales inquiry. So this is used normally when someone rings up the facility or sends an email saying, look, I'm interested in storing a unit. How much are they? What services can you offer? And do you have any units available? That sort of thing. So to do that, I'm just going to click on the sales inquiry icon up here. It's the little person with a speech bubble. And once I click on that, it'll open up the new sales inquiry window. Now, as you'll see across the top here, this is sales inquiry number 6. There's a lot of zeros there, but we have found that people have a lot of sales inquiry after 5 or 10 years of using StorMan, so we do have a lot of numbers in there just to keep each one unique. And StorMan, being a database program, doesn't have a limit. You can have as many as you like, and we don't delete them or anything. They just get archived, so they're always there to find no matter when someone did a sales inquiry. And the first thing we'll see here is customer name, and this allows us to put in a name for our customer. For example, I'll just put in here Matt Smith. That's the customer name there. Now you might think, okay, Matt Smith, that's great, but what if I put it in backwards? Smith, comma, space, Matt. You might be asking, what's the point of doing that? Well, I'll show you. As soon as I hit tab or click out of that field, what it does is it's realized that anything after the comma space is going to be a first name. And what StorMan has done for us underneath is automatically filled in the first name field with the word Matt, because it knows that that's going to be the first name. It's after the comma space. Now for a name like Matt, it doesn't really matter because it's quite short anyway, but if someone has a very long first name or a hyphenated first and middle name, it can save a lot of typing by using that delimiter there, the comma space, which is great to save a bit of time. Okay, I'll just put in a mailing address here. One 23 Fake Street, Brisbane, Queensland 4001, and then select the country, Australia. There we go. So we just put in some address information there on that screen. Of course, if this were a company, the customer name would be the company name, for example, Microsoft or Hewlett-Packard, and the contact person here would be the person who you'd be in touch with for any invoicing inquiries and that sort of thing. Just underneath that, we have a marketing information section in the bottom left of the screen, and this allows you to sort of set some parameters for this customer. How did they find you? Well, they might have come through the Yellow Pages, or it might have been on Google or Yahoo or some sort of web search engine. The type of customer, they might be a residential customer. The category, well, if they were a mail-out customer or a phone-in customer, and whether or not they've stored with you before. I'll just select no for this particular customer. Now you can customize them if you like. You can have as many things in there as you like, and you can really drill down to all kinds of things. So it might be Yellow Pages Online as opposed to Yellow Pages the book, or it might be even White Pages because they do list businesses in there now. So you can sort of drill down to all different categories, and you can customize them when you set up StorMan as well and put your own things in there. Home phone number, work phone number, mobile number and email address. You can all put those details into there for the customer. Underneath that, the stored goods. This is just what they might be storing. So for example, they might be interested in storing a vehicle, when the unit would be required and the duration of stay. So it might be next week and they're thinking of staying 6 months. Now the reason we ask those questions is because StorMan will be able to sort of lock this unit away for 6 months or so and then allow you to sort of rent it to other people after that time. So it does provide that information in there. And we just had a question actually from one of our members, Ali, who's joining us from Adelaide, I believe. Ali has asked if it's a commercial customer, is there a field to add an ABN? Yes, absolutely there is. It's not in the sales inquiry stage, but it's certainly in the move-in stage. When you do collect that information at the move-in time, you can definitely put in an ABN or GST number there. Hope that answers your question there, Ali. Okay, so that's the main section for the sales inquiry. If we click across to the second tab, you'll notice there are 3 tabs along the top. We have quotes and letters. Just so you know, we were actually on the sales and contact details, the first tab. We're now across the second one, quotes and letters. Now what this tab does here is allow you to quote items for the customer. Now you can quote on anything that you sell in StorMan, not just units or berths if you're using a marina product. You can quote on boxes, locks, rope, petrol, anything that you sell in the system you can quote on it. So what we'll just do here is click the Add Item button on the bottom left to add an item to our quotation. And I'm just going to select storage fees to begin with, because we're just going to quote on a unit to start with. And StorMan's asking, okay, well these are all the unit types we have in the system. Which one did you want to quote on? Well, we'll quote on a 3x3 because we think that's how much he needs in terms of the space there. And $135. Yep, that's a great price. Now $135 is the rack rate that it's picked up from StorMan in the system. But if you do want to change that, you can. You can make that higher or lower and the customer won't know. So if these particular units are in demand, you may wish to sell it for $150 instead of $135. And all you do is click in there and make it $150. You can still put great price, that's no worry. The customer won't know that you're selling it for quite a bit more than what it's normally worth. And click OK to add that item to the quote. We can also then go and add another item. For example, if the customer isn't sure if they need a 3x3 or a 4x3, no problems, we can quote them on a 4x3 as well in the same way. $150. Let's make that one $180, otherwise it seems a bit silly to have a bigger unit at the same price as the last one. And we can also add a note there if required. Okay, so we've got the 2 units there. You can also, as I mentioned, quote on items that you sell. So for example, I might put in some boxes here, medium box, $15 is the rack rate. I might put in 2 of those and put a note, bulk buy discount, whatever the case may be. Again, if you do adjust the price, the customer won't know that they're paying more or less than the standard rack rate at any time, unless of course they see your computer screen, but it's probably not possible if it's behind a counter or something like that. And there we go, we've just built a quote for this particular customer. What I'm going to do here at this stage is just click the OK button to save that sales inquiry. And if I come back over here to our main screen and refresh it, it does refresh every 10 seconds by default anyway, but if I don't want to wait 10 seconds and I need to find Matt, I can just refresh that straight away and type in the word Matt. And there we can see Matt's sales inquiry. Now it's come up twice because Matt has 2 units that we've quoted for, but either one will open up the exact same sales inquiry because they're both attached to the same thing. So we just come and open up that here. There's Matt's sales inquiry as before, 123 Fake Street, etc. And the quote is all there exactly as we had. Now let's just say Matt's rung back the next day or later that day and said, yep, that's a really good price, I'd like to move in. No worries, all we do is search for Matt, double click on his name here and it opens up as we saw before. And on the right hand side here you'll see 3 buttons. The first one, sales inquiry declined, means that the customer, well, you rang them back the next day and they weren't interested, or they called you back and said, no, look, sorry, I've gone down the road, they're a bit cheaper, whatever the case might be. No worries. Convert to reservation. If you click that button there, it converts this particular sales inquiry across to a reservation. It retains all the information you've entered as well, and that converts it through to a reservation so that customer can then book in and reserve that unit, pay the deposit, and so on. And the last one, which we use today, is convert to agreement, and that skips the reservation, which is probably fine if the customer's standing there right now, the truck's outside, and they want to move into your unit straight away. No problems, just click convert to agreement as we'll do now. And you'll see that StorMan is confirming the new agreement number. It just says, well, the next available number in the system is number 58. Do you want to use that agreement number for Matt? Okay. Now, let's just say you've got a paper-based agreement system as well. You might need their signature and that sort of thing on a paper-based pad that you've got printed up. If the last person you filled out, you may have made a mistake and you had to throw that number away, obviously the numbers are going to be out in StorMan because you may have had to waste a piece of paper to redo someone's agreement. That's okay. You can click in this box and just change it to, say, 59 or 60, whatever the case may be. So you will be able to change it at any time here. Click OK. Now, StorMan has detected that we've quoted this customer 2 different units. It said, well, in the quote you did you did a 3x3 at 150 and a 4x3 at 180. Which one does the customer want? Do they want the small one, the big one, or do they want both? Because there's nothing stopping you from selecting both, and you can move them into both units at the same time. For this example, I'm just going to select the first one because that's sufficient enough for the person's goods. Just select that one and click Done. And what StorMan is now showing us is any units that are of size 3x3 that are vacant. And there's only one here, unit 131, and that's the particular one I'm going to move him into. And click Select. Okay, now if for whatever reason you didn't have any 3x3s available, because you might have quoted him a few weeks ago, and by the time he's moved in you don't have any 3x3s available, StorMan will prompt you and you'll then have to settle on the next size up or the next size down, whatever you wish to do there. Now, StorMan's confirming the move-in date, 20th of the 11th, no problems at all. Click OK. You can actually move someone in advance if you need to, and also you can move them in the past as well. If you forgot to do it one day, you can move them in the past. And if they're due to head overseas and they've got someone else doing the removals on the weekend for them, no problems. You can move them in the future as well. And StorMan's actually smart. If you give someone a PIN number, and they're not moving until the weekend, that PIN number won't work in the gate system until the weekend because StorMan knows they're not really moving in today, they're just filling out the forms, and it will activate the PIN number as soon as they do move in on the weekend. Okay, now what it's done now is open up a brand new agreement screen for Matt Smith. And these are very, very similar to the agreement screens I showed you before for Rob Fitty and so on as I was doing that example. And essentially what it's got here at the top is a unit charges table. And this is just showing us all of the units that this customer is in. In this case, only one. It's unit 131. It's a type 9. You can call these types whatever you want. You might have outside, inside, driveway, whatever. It's a 3x3. 20th of November here is the move-in date. This particular user is paying a $50 deposit on the unit. And the insurance value, now if we just click in there, we can adjust the insurance value. So for example, if he's got a car in there, not that you really fit a car on a 3x3, or you might do, depending on what type of car it is. You might wish to make that $25,000, something like that, for the insurance value. Then we see the rate. Now this is the rack rate of the unit that's in the system. So 135 is what we saw, that's the rack rate before. But you might remember we sold this particular unit to the customer for $150 instead because they were in demand. No problems at all. All you have to do is put the new rate in here and StorMan will give you a discount. So as you've seen in our example there, the rack rate was $135. We were selling the unit for $150, so it's actually showing a negative discount, in other words a profit of $15. So we're making $15 extra when this guy's paying his rent as opposed to someone else on the rack rate. So that's those fields there. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the customer won't see that they're getting the unit for more than normal unless you enable that on their invoices. The last two sections in this top part here, new rent and increase from, allow you to set a rent increase date and an amount. So, for example, if you want this unit to go up to $160 in 3 months' time, no problems. You just click on this field here, make it $160, and change the date to a couple of months away, whenever the rent will go through. And StorMan will automatically send the customer a letter a couple of weeks before that date as well, so they know that the rent increase is coming. And it's all automated, it does all this sort of stuff for you, so you don't have to remember who's due, when they're due, what to send them, and so on. So that's the top section there. If this customer were to have many units, you could of course see all of those units lined up underneath, and there's a scroll bar on the right hand side where you can scroll through them to view them all.